Hello everyone. My name is Mikey McCoy, and I carry a story that has shaken me to my core. For years, Charlie wasn't just my mentor. He was my brother in every sense that mattered. We built something powerful together. We traveled the world together. And now, after weeks of silence, I can no longer hold back what I've seen, what I've heard, and what I still can't explain. Because what happened that night, it wasn't just an incident. It was a moment that split reality in two between what the cameras showed and what really took place behind the scenes. Today, Mikey McCoy, the man once seen as Charlie Kirk's right hand and closest confidant, is finally breaking his silence. His words are now echoing through Turning Point USA like a shockwave, shaking its foundations and forcing everyone to ask, was this tragedy truly unexpected? Or was something quietly set in motion long before that day? The official report described it as routine, a packed event, lights flashing, flags waving, and Charlie commanding the stage with his usual conviction and charisma. The crowd was electric. But then everything stopped. Scream, a noise no one could describe. And then chaos. The scene turned from celebration to confusion in seconds. Security swarmed, cameras dropped, and what followed looked more like a war zone than a rally. Witnesses say people rushed to Charlie's side, desperately trying to help. But in the background something, or rather someone, caught the eye of countless viewers when the footage went viral later that night. There in the distance was Mikey McCoy, not running toward the chaos, but walking away. Composed, almost detached. That single image ignited a storm online. Because when the world saw that clip, questions began to multiply, and fast. Later, Charlie's wife, Erika Kirk, revealed something chilling. "It was Mikey who called me first," she said, her voice trembling. He sounded terrified, like he was trying to stay calm, but his words didn't match his tone. But then came another version, from Pastor Rob McCoy, Mikey's father. He claimed he was the first to receive the call. "My son said, 'Dad, Charlie's been shot in the neck. Call every pastor and pray.'" Who calls? Two conflicting accounts. One truth still buried. Investigators later confirmed they examined the call logs, but no public results were ever released. And that silence, that gap, became the perfect breeding ground for suspicion. Online sleuths began tearing apart every second of footage, analyzing Mikey's eyes, his expression, even the rhythm of his steps as he left the scene. Some say it was shock. Others call it something else entirely. And that's where this story turns from tragedy into mystery. But not everyone saw it the same way. To some, Mikey's calmness looked like grace under pressure. To others, it looked like something far more confusing. People called it astonishing, unnatural, even chilling. That single phone call, the one that was supposed to be a cry for help, began to feel like a puzzle piece that didn't quite fit. The urgency vanished. What remained was ambiguity. And suddenly, the line between a bystander and someone deeply entangled began to blur. What the world first accepted as a heartbreaking tragedy was now starting to look like something that might have been carefully hidden in plain sight. 2 days after the chaos, the world saw her, Erika Kirk. Her live broadcast pulled in millions. She appeared poised but fragile, her eyes red from sleepless nights, her tone perfectly measured. It was the kind of composure that only comes when you know every word you speak will echo around the world. Standing at that podium, Erika began by thanking the Turning Point USA family, those who had stood beside her in the darkness. And then, she said his name. "I want to thank my husband's chief of staff, the amazing Mikey McCoy." Her voice wavered for a fraction of a second, but the camera caught everything. The tiny pause, the half smile, the deliberate tone. "Mikey McCoy is awesome." 3 simple words, but they split the internet in half. To some, it was a public thank you to a loyal friend, the man who stayed calm when everyone else panicked. But to others, it sounded like something else entirely. Signal. A quiet message, buried beneath layers of grief and performance. Within hours, that clip flooded every platform. Flowed down. Analyzed. Frozen frame by frame. People asked, Why emphasize him? Why that tone? Was it gratitude? Or was it coded protection? And just like that, the narrative shifted again. The story that began with tragedy was now tangled in whispers of manipulation, power, and control. But there's something most people missed. Something hidden in the footage from those first critical seconds. A video compiled by independent analyst Sam Parker revealed details the mainstream never talked about. Look closely, that's Mikey standing just left of the tent. The moment Charlie collapses, everyone drops, screams, rushes, but not him. In one swift motion, Mikey picks up his phone. He doesn't duck. He doesn't move toward Charlie. He turns away and walks. No hesitation. No confusion. Just motion, deliberate, precise, and eerily calm. And from that moment on, the internet had only one question. Who was he calling? And why did he seem to know exactly what to do before anyone else did? Let's go back to the footage. One more time. Slow it down. Frame by frame. Charlie is hit. The crowd erupts. Panic everywhere. But there Mikey. One motion. Phone in hand. And then, he starts walking. He disappears behind the tent for a few seconds. Then re-emerges. Still on the phone. Still calm. Still composed. That kind of composure in chaos is rare. Some call it discipline. Others call it unnatural. Even the most forgiving voices couldn't ignore how strange it looked. Not criminal, at least not provable. But undeniably off. In another camera angle, the contrast becomes even starker. You can see Charlie being rushed to an SUV. Blood on the pavement, hands trembling. And in the background, Mikey walks away, phone pressed to his ear, moving as if he's stepping out of a meeting, not a crisis. The question that won't die. Who was he calling? And why does his calm feel rehearsed? Soon after, Erika Kirk broke her silence again. Her new message wasn't just about grief. It was about reflection, about looking behind the curtain, as she called it. From that moment on, insiders say Mikey was always by her side. Always. Leaked internal reports from Turning Point USA, later cited by the Singju Post and the New York Times, described him as more than just a staff member. He became Erika's protector, strategist, and spokesperson. He managed her communications, controlled what got out, and built an invisible barrier between her and everyone else. The man who once walked away from the chaos was now the one managing every ounce of its fallout. Behavioral experts began to pick apart Erika's language from that viral speech. Her word choice, wonderful instead of brave, amazing instead of loyal, wasn't random. In psychology, that kind of instinctive vocabulary often reveals emotion before logic. One analyst put it simply, in moments of trauma we slip. We show who we truly connect with. That one adjective, wonderful, changed everything. It transformed public sympathy into suspicion, casting doubt on whether Mikey's presence was comfort or control. The reactions were polar opposites. Some hailed Erika's calmness as leadership under fire, a sign that Turning Point USA could endure the storm. But others saw something else. A stillness too perfect. Performance too polished. The image of Erika, steady and composed while the empire around her trembled, became the symbol of something haunting. A movement built on certainty, now cracking from within. And through it all, Mikey McCoy stayed silent. No interviews. No statements. No visible grief. Just silence. But sometimes silence is louder than words. And the longer he stayed quiet, the more that silence began to sound like strategy. But the question still lingered in every corner of the internet. Who exactly is Mikey McCoy? Before that tragic day, his name barely existed outside Turning Point USA's inner circle. But within those walls he was everywhere. The quiet architect, the fixer, the man who made sure every camera, every schedule, every movement ran like clockwork. Inside the organization, people described him as calm, efficient, almost surgical in how he handled chaos. He was Charlie's right hand, not by chance but by design. And the way their paths first crossed almost sounds scripted. The first time I met Charlie, Mikey once said, I drove him and his girlfriend Erika to the airport. He grilled me the entire way. Aristotle, Plato, American history. And when we got there, he looked at me and said, "I don't want you to go to college. I want you to come work for me." And just like that, the deal was sealed. Mikey McCoy, once a driver, became the man behind one of the most influential movements in America. But now that same loyalty had turned into suspicion. The silence surrounding him was deafening. And in that silence, people began to fill the gaps with their own truths. Then came the spark that reignited everything. Candace Owens. By late October, when the noise had begun to fade, she lit the match again. Her podcast episode dropped like a grenade. Calculated. Every word laced with precision. "Look at the footage," she said to millions. Why did Mikey McCoy turn away when his leader needed help? Her tone was not outrage. It was surgical. She dissected every second, every frame. The angle, the reaction, the timing of the call. Then she went further, demanding that the call logs be made public. Within hours, her words were everywhere. Clipped, shared, captioned. Hashtag the McCoy call began trending. "There are too many little lies being told," she said. Charlie gets assassinated, and the same people who tried to destroy him are now rewriting how he died. Challenge accepted. The truth will be exposed. But Owens didn't stop there. She hinted at something darker. Deep state interference, political cover-ups, and even Pastor Rob McCoy's alleged role as a security liaison with classified connections. Her implication was chilling. If the story doesn't add up, someone inside is making sure it doesn't. Those words spread like wildfire. In days, journalists, influencers, and independent investigators started pulling at the same thread. The missing minutes, the broken audio, the strange gaps in timeline. One analyst called it public prosecution disguised as patriotism, a digital court of law, and Mikey was at the center of it. But here's the twist no one saw coming. While Candace claimed she was exposing corruption, her broadcast actually tightened Turning Point's inner circle. The walls went up. The message became unified. And the silence became strategy. Internal memos began circulating. Be disciplined in your messaging. No division. No interviews. No leaks. Behind the scenes, confusion turned into quiet panic. Chat logs from staff described the mood as tense, watched, and off-script. Everyone was waiting for someone to speak. And finally that voice emerged. It was Blake Neff, Charlie's veteran producer, the architect of the movement's public image. He went live less than 24 hours later. His tone was firm, emotional, and controlled. "This attack on Mikey McCoy is disgusting," he said. "I was there. I stood next to him. When that shot rang out, we didn't know if there was a mass shooter. We reacted like anyone would. That's not betrayal, that's survival." He described the chaos in vivid detail. The sound, the confusion, the terror. Then he said a line that would echo through conservative media for weeks. Charlie did not fall in vain. He stood for his convictions until his very last breath. And with that, Turning Point USA began to rebuild its own version of the truth. The organization's digital platforms synchronized. Clips were shared. Narratives aligned. Every post carried the same message. Faith, loyalty, unity. But critics noticed something eerie. The story felt too smooth, too rehearsed, too clean. Legal experts began to whisper. This wasn't grief control. It was narrative control. Even Pastor Rob McCoy's later statements didn't align with his earlier ones. Timelines shifted. Quotes changed. And beneath the surface, a new kind of power struggle had begun. One that wasn't about politics or faith anymore. It was about truth itself. As one insider put it, the media became a shield, protecting the movement, not the memory. And beneath that polished surface of loyalty and light, small fractures began to form. Cracks in the perfect facade, the kind that can only come from one thing, guilt. He calls Pastor Rob McCoy, his voice trembling. "Dad, Charlie's been shot. Call every pastor you know. We need prayer. Now." But even as the prayer chains began to form, Another question was quietly being whispered inside the walls of Turning Point. Why were only a few voices allowed to speak? And why did the truth feel buried beneath layers of sanctity and polished sorrow? The silence was too perfect, too rehearsed. Was it loyalty holding them together, or fear tearing them apart from the inside? Then it happened. 15-second clip. Grainy, blurry, posted from an anonymous account. Charlie on stage. A moment of hesitation. Mikey turns. Phone pressed to his ear. That was it. 15 seconds. And the entire internet detonated. Within minutes, timelines were flooded. He's gone. It's official. Then came the tweet from Turning Point. So, dear family, with heavy hearts we share that Charlie has gone home to Jesus. The message was clean, reverent, and final. But online the storm refused to die. Half the world mourned. The other half demanded answers. Some said it was a tragic accident. Others swore it was retaliation, tied to Charlie's fiery remarks just days before about Gaza, Netanyahu, and the web of money and influence connecting politics, faith and war. And then came the whispers about the documents. Alleged files that never saw daylight. Files that some claimed linked leading conservatives to covert international intelligence channels. Within hours, hashtags turned to battlegrounds. Mossad. Conspiracy. Collusion. Every theory sounded insane, until it didn't. Experts called it digital combustion. One spark of truth mixed with silence and grief, and the whole world started writing its own story. Fact-checkers tried to step in. Intel sites, media watchdogs, all saying there's no proof. But by then, the truth was irrelevant. The narrative had become a wildfire of belief. And in that fire, one name kept burning: Mikey McCoy. To some, he was the friend who froze in shock. To others, the traitor who made the wrong call at the worst moment. Dozens of YouTube channels turned him into a living symbol. Every gesture dissected, every blink slowed down frame by frame. Meanwhile, legal analysts started seeing something deeper. Not a scandal, but a collapse of trust itself. What began as a tragedy had become a mirror, reflecting the world's obsession with blame over truth. And then, another name emerged. Tyler Robinson. Just 22. Student. Arrested in connection with the shooting at Utah Valley University. Witnesses said the scene that day was chaos. The screams, the confusion, the impossible silence that followed. Investigators claimed Tyler was identified through footage and eyewitness reports. Arrested hours later in Orem, Utah. Facing serious charges, obstruction of justice, and possession of a vehicle linked to the crime. Court documents revealed his past. A tech student, quiet, frustrated, politically vocal in ways that clashed with Charlie's public image. But there was no confirmed link to Turning Point. Only rumors spun by the internet's need to fill the gaps. His motives remained sealed. But the text messages he allegedly sent that night, turned over by his roommate, now fuel 1,000 theories. As the legal process unfolded, the story began to shift again. From Mikey's alleged betrayal to Tyler's alleged motive to something far more unsettling, the political mood of an entire nation. The headlines slowed. The hashtags died. But the silence that followed didn't bring peace. Brought unease. Because while the world argued over conspiracies and villains, one man stayed completely quiet. Mikey McCoy. No interviews. No statements. No leaks. Nothing. Just silence. Cold. Controlled. Calculated. In October, Turning Point's leadership confirmed that Mikey still holds a senior role, right beside Erika Kirk. The two now oversee the day-to-day operations of the empire Charlie left behind. Some call it loyalty rewarded. Others call it survival at any cost. Behind closed doors, insiders describe Mikey's presence as unshakable. He's not defending himself. He's outlasting everyone else. One source described him as a chess player in a room full of checkers. Every move intentional. Every silence weaponized. He appears only at verified events. He avoids the noise. And he maintains a digital absence so precise, it almost feels strategic. Analysts say it's crisis management 101. Control the narrative by refusing to feed it. But critics sense something colder. A man who knows more than he'll ever say. His silence has become both a shield and a signal. For some, it's discipline. For others, it's guilt. And for millions still scrolling through old clips and half-forgotten threads, that silence has become the loudest sound in the story. Because sometimes the truth doesn't end with a confession, it ends with the quiet that follows. So what does silence mean? Is it loyalty? Or is it the final form of control? Perhaps the truth is still out there, buried in a file, locked in a memory, or hiding behind a man who learned that saying nothing is the most powerful answer of all. Share your thoughts below. And remember, silence too can be a statement.